Yeah. This is the Legacy League. Tell me what will your legacy be? Yeah.
Welcome to the Legacy League's post-game show. I'm your host, Greg Horne. I am back for another week, and I got to take a second. I might be dreaming right now. I got Connor in here. I got the three-time champ, former assist record holder, Sauer and Chris. You know how we at Flint Nation do. But three-time champ, and then I got an intern who has been killing it as of late, Jake. But first, I got to give a special shout-out, Connor. How are we doing? We got the Weekly Rebound co-host, my brother, back. Just let the people know. How does it feel to be back on the postgame?
You know what the vibes are. We got me, you, and Chris on here. It's that OG Legacy Leagues chat going back like 8 years. It's going to be a good time when the three of us are on a pod, and glad to have Jake on with us as well.
Amen. Chris, first, let me know. How does it feel?
Man, I feel like you got to give more respect to Jake here instead of just talking about the three of us.
Okay. Jake.
I don't like that.
Let's hear.
No, sorry. Appreciate the love, and I'm glad to be here.
Hell yeah, no, of course. And I mean, look, I'm excited because we had a good week of games, and we have a really good week of games upcoming, and that's kind of going to be a common theme because some of these games were blowouts this week, but we're going to kind of hop right into the one. And speaking of a blowout, it was Chris's favorite arch nemesis, Joey Zacco, getting a big dub against the FD Ballers. I know Joey is not actually playing, but will be the 3-point contest this season. But Run TMC came in and they didn't have Eric Singleton, and they absolutely dominated. And it just goes to show what Joey does as the GM for this team. But I'm gonna kick it first to Jacob. I just want to know before we get into this game, Run TMC did win 137-67. It was the Reggie Stewart show. But Jake, you're new to this league. Chris and Connor obviously know pretty much everyone in this league. Who's someone on Run TMC that really sticks out to you that just you think kind of sets the tone for them and why they're one of the more elite teams in this league?
Yeah, so I mean, the obvious one for me is Reggie Stewart. I feel like he's often, when I'm at the games, lights out from three. But I mean, this specific game that happened this past week, I wanted to talk about because it seemed it wasn't just one person. They had a fatal balanced three-way scoring attack of Reggie Stewart, Miles Raymond, Will Hudson. They had 48, 36, and 34. I mean, if you have three guys dropping above 30 game, I feel like that's almost a guaranteed win, especially in this league. And I feel like if Reggie Stewart's able to be consistent week in after week out, and they're getting this additional help, I feel like they're going to do really good, especially offensively.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're 100% right. Those are household names in this league. And, that's kind of what Run TMC you've come to expect with them. They hit a lot of threes. Will Hudson, Reggie Stewart, I mean, that's what they do. Chris, you've played this team. You've had battles with this team. What do you think about Run TMC in this one? Just kind of taking care of business, move on to the next?
Seems like it. I mean, Will Hudson kind of had a throwback game here. I don't think we've seen him drop 30 points in this league in a while. I mean, no disrespect. He's one of the better shooters in the league. Obviously, Reggie did his thing, 20 for 28 from the field. He had 11 rebounds, 16 assists, so he had a triple-double, which is kind of what that's why some people call him Reggie Westbrook, because he pretty much stuffs the stat sheet. But yeah, it's what you expect. Run TMC is one of the probably, I think they've been in the league pretty much every season. So you pretty much know what to expect at this point. Joey tries to be like me and put together a good roster. No, Joey does a good job as GM. You pretty much know what to expect. You know what to expect is with the Run TMC team at this point. You know they're gonna blow out the teams that aren't as on the same level, and they're gonna play really well against the top teams in the league always, and they're usually in contention for the championship.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's what you would come to expect. Look, Run TMC next week's got Flint Tropics, and we all know Flint loves beating Run TMC. They love beating Joey, even if Joey's not playing. They know Joey's a part of this team, and I know they're going to be, like sharks, just smelling blood in the water. But Connor, What do you got? Run TMC FD. I mean, I'll let you go kind of anywhere with this. Run TMC FD ballers. What do you see from these two?
FD Ballers, obviously, not much to talk about, kind of a lackluster performance, but they did kind of balance out the scoring sheet pretty well. They had three guys that all made 7 baskets, 4 guys in double digits. As long as they're out there, they're having fun, they're getting some buckets. I think that's really what their main objective is at this point throughout the season. They're not really going to be a title contender, so at least to see the guys, pretty much all getting active, getting involved was good. This was a crazy week, though. We're going to get into the Get Money game a little bit later in the show here. Kyle Davis obviously had some eye-popping numbers, but this Reggie Stewart stat line, honestly, it might be, I don't want to say better, but like on the same level. I mean, 48 points, 16 assists, 11 rebounds, added a couple steals in there as well,
Yeah, wow.
and no turnovers. You're handling the ball as much as Reggie is, and you're not turning the ball over while getting 16 assists as well. That's an insane stat line. That might be up there, honestly. It's a sneaky, one of the best stat lines in maybe Legacy League's history. I mean, that's absurd, those numbers. So that's something that popped out to me. I'm glad that Chris got on Will Hudson a little bit because he texted us in the group chat and he was like, who's letting Will Hudson score 34 in 2025? But Will can still get buckets, man. Will can pop that ball from 3. He's always had a good stroke. It's one of those things. If you're a good shooter, you might not be as dominant in the low post like you once were, but you can always shoot that thing from outside. So it's good to see Will. I think Will was an all-star last year too. So don't sleep on Will Hudson in his later years in Legacy League, still getting buckets. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Miles Raymond, another great game too. Miles, 36 points. I mean, we saw him have 50 last year, so that really wasn't too much of a surprise. I talked to Miles. He said he was coming into the season with an injury. He said he's starting to feel a little bit better now, and you're starting to see it. Last week, he had a huge 3 late in that game for Run TMC to help seal the win. And then this week, he comes back and drops 36. So it looks like Miles might be getting back to his ways and makes Run TMC just a scary team.
Yeah, no. Amen. Shout out Run TMC. Shout out Joey. We love the commish and we love Run TMC. And I know in Rudzinski's closet, he's got a jersey somewhere sitting around, a Run TMC jersey, because he loves playing them too. But let's move on to the next game. Another team Chris likes to play. That's a good transition. And we're talking about the Flint Tropics. And Flint Tropics absolutely took it to Lord's Army. And this is good. This is going to be a good conversation, this game, because Lord's Army right now, I'm just going to pull this up. Flint took the game 108-89. We'll give a shout out to Flint. I mean, obviously, I'm riding Flint all the time. Everyone knows that. I just kind of want to take this discussion somewhere else. I just want to talk about Lord's Army first before we, give Flint the props that they always deserve, just dominating this league. Lord's Army, before this year, if you looked, I don't think any of us really expected them to be where they're at in the standings. So I'll kind of first go to Jacob on this one. Jacob, what have you seen from Lord's Army in the few games you've seen them, and just what do you think they could do to kind of improve going forward?
I mean, I feel like there's no major improvement that they need. Looking at the stat sheets through the past weeks, especially the past one, they only had one player shoot under 50%. So I feel like shooting definitely isn't an issue. If anything, it would just be to work on the defensive side. But even losing by 19 points to Flint, we've seen much worse. So that's honestly not too bad. So I feel like just staying consistent and the right things will come to them at the right time. And they're definitely in a good spot right now. Even though they lost this past week, I feel like they could definitely look positively moving forward.
Yeah, they've had a lot of close games. Obviously, they played some good teams. But Chris, I'm going to go to you. What do you think's what do you think's going on with this Lord's Army team? They played a lot of teams close, but it seems like they kind of can't get over the hump and close out the games.
From what I've seen from this Lord's Army team, I just think that it's some new players on this roster. I think they have a tough time trying to figure out when to do the subs and kind of who to mix and match. Because as you saw down the stretch, they were up by 10 against Yaggaville going into the fourth quarter. I mean, like Jake said, to kind of stay closer with Flint compared to some of these other teams is a tough task in itself because they play defense and shoot lights out every single week. I feel like they're always above 35% from 3, Flint. But obviously, I mean, Lord's Army has a very balanced team overall, I would say, with Bromwell and Morales, and all these guys just need to find a way to gel together down the stretch and maybe close out one of these games. And they still have a couple weeks. They could figure this out and maybe go on a little run in the playoffs. Everybody
Yeah,
makes it.
yeah,
We've seen not necessarily here, but I'm pretty sure in Massachusetts or Rhode Island last year, the 8 seed won the
yeah.
championship. So
No, yeah, we've seen it before, Connor. I'll go to you. I know you've watched Lord's Army, I think for the first time, like actually up and close last week. So I'm interested in what you saw from them. They didn't play a bad game, and I'm not like going at them or targeting them or anything. It's just because you look at their team and they could be. I could see in a different world where they're maybe 4-1 or 3-2 in this league. So Connor, what do you got?
Yeah, Jake kind of touched on it. I was looking at the stats after this game this past week, and they shot 68% from the field, and they lost by damn near 20 points. That is insane, and me and you, Greg, we were watching this game together on the sidelines. We were just commenting a lot on just how good of an offense Flint runs. So the main thing you can really say about Lord's Army is like you just got to defend, right? Because offensively, I mean, when you shoot 68% from the field, you shouldn't be losing by 20. So you're going to put the blame on the defensive end on most cases. But really, it's like it was just a credit to how good of an offense Flint's been running. Matt Fink, he's been a godsend for this team, and he's one of the bigger players on their roster. He's probably like their power forward out there. Him and Bazzuto are obviously really big players for size wise and just stat wise for this team. But I think Mike and Matt have probably both been playing guard their whole life in basketball. Growing up, so they're great floor spacers. They're great at moving the ball and finding open shooters, and they just have like a really good chemistry on offense that makes it really difficult to defend. Like even if they're missing shots, they're missing open shots. They're always finding the right guy. They're making the extra pass, and it just it's a credit to how long they probably all been playing together and that chemistry that they've developed probably since their young childhood days. Playing in the backyard. So it's tough to really say that Lord's Army was supposed to win this game. I mean, they were kind of outmatched with just an offensive play style that the Flint Tropics brought out this past week. And you know, I don't know, if you're Lord's Army, do you try messing with like a zone, or you got to do something defensively just to improve your team, because offensively is not the issue. They're obviously getting buckets, but you got to find a way to string together stops in these games, keep it close. Obviously closing has been an issue. We've talked about that. And a lot of that comes back down to the defensive end. You got to get stops late, and then you got to find these guys, to get these buckets that put you over the hump in those closeout minutes of big time games against teams like Flint Tropics. So, yeah, I mean, really, it's just a matter of just gelling and figuring it out. They got time, still a couple weeks till the playoffs. So, I think there's high hopes for this team. I think they've kind of dropped in my personal power rankings for where I thought they would be, and I know they were missing a couple players this week, so there's definitely room for improvement there. But I'm not counting them out yet. But definitely want to see a second win for this team, leading into the playoffs. So hopefully they can make that happen.
No, yeah, and Lord's Army next week got NLMB in a rematch from literally 2 weeks ago where they lost 81-74. So that's going to be a big game. They're going to want to win next week. But speaking of NLMB, we got the next game coming up. Shout out to my Flint Tropics, though. Taking care of business. We do what we do. Big game against TMC next week for Flint. So, two teams that, might have been looking ahead a little bit. And, speaking of course, as I said, NLMB went on against Yaggaville, and they continued their trend of just playing great basketball. NLMB could have taken this game at any point. They are just, this NLMB team is so fun to watch. They're like the people's champ. I feel like everyone's rooting for them. Dante Hodge is incredible. Andrew Murray's come out of nowhere and just been awesome. And I just think a big thing in this one was the size advantage on Yaga's end. But I'm going to go to you, Chris, first, and then Connor. Chris, you've played with a few of the guys on Yaggaville. Just want to clarify again, it's Yaggaville, not Yaga. I know there's the whole thing, but for Yaggaville, how did they take this one 85-81? It was a very close game in the end.
I think it just goes again to show how deep this Yaggaville team is, because it seems like no matter who shows up, the games have been close, but they seem to be getting it done. Eric Langston had his best game of the season. Honestly, it's probably one of his best games in the last few seasons that we've seen. Because I mean, he hit the game winner in the finals, but he didn't have 30 points. Um, again, well, I think the game could have went differently if Pratt didn't show up and score 8 points in a row right off the bench. I think that was a huge key because he brings a lot of energy when he shows up, and it seems like when Pratt shows up, the whole team just kind of plays differently and plays with more energy. You saw TJ Killings was getting rebounds and putting it back. Um, Obviously, he needs to stop shooting threes, but we won't talk about that. He knows that. Dave Armstrong, another solid. I think he had a double double. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the dark horse MVP of this team so far has kind of been Randy Kahn. He's come out of. I mean, I knew he was a shooter when I've seen him play before. Obviously, I didn't think he would light it up like this, adjusting the rims this easily. It seems like it's been pretty seamless adjustment. But so far, he's one of the dark horses I would say too to win Finals MVP if this team gets there because he seems to find his way open and they find him the rock. Um, but yeah, obviously this team needs Mike Davis and needs Jelly to show up if they're gonna go to the championship and win.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I mean, speaking of Dave Armstrong, I mean, I don't know if there's a better rebounder ever in this. Like, I know last week I was saying how good he's just like every time, like TJ's incredible actually at rebounding, and TJ reminds me in a weird way of LG, Greg Daniels, a former player who was in this league. He just kind of like in Chris, you said it best. When Pratt showed up, everyone started really going at it, and Pratt sets the tone for this team, and he always has throughout the years, and that's why he's Pratt. You mic him up, and he that would go viral in a second. But Connor, I'm going to go to you. You've spent a lot of time watching this Yaggaville team. You've seen a lot of NLMB. NLMB played great. What'd you see in this one?
Yeah, and Chris touched on it. It was a great game, and Pratt showed up, and like he said, he scored 8 points right away. He hit a couple of threes, had a nice dunk, um, and like he set the tone immediately when he showed up. Obviously, he showed up late, like Chris mentioned, but he definitely does have that leadership effect. He kind of calms guys down when there's the bickering amongst minutes or referees not making the right call. He kind of settles everyone down and he gets everybody locked in, and that was definitely important. I know the game was super close going into the fourth quarter, and I just heard Pratt, telling the guys, listen, if we play defense, we're going to win the game. Because sometimes that's the issue with Yaga, right? They're so good offensively that they think they can just outscore everybody and they can take it easy on the defensive end. But, that was like the Pratt effect, in motion right there, just telling everybody, let's go. We got to play defense this fourth quarter. Otherwise, these guys are going to steal it from us because that's the type of team NLMB is, man. They can definitely catch people off guard. And it's funny, you look at their stats. Only 3 guys scored for NLMB. I know one of their guys was out there, number 15, Jamar Peterson. He still had 10 rebounds. He was just kind of, cleaning up the boards for them. But, really just a 3-headed monster. That's all they really needed to keep themselves competitive in a really tight game. And they were down a couple players as well. I know their boy Speedy was down there playing. Greg mentioned a flag football tournament. I think you said you won the flag football tournament in Florida, Greg. So shout out to him. But he's an important player for this team. He definitely could have contributed some big minutes. But yeah, those 3 guys, man, Christian, Andrew, and Dante, man, they got to give them a lot of credit. Just three of them out there really just gunning it the whole game and staying neck and neck with some extremely talented players on Yaga. And Chris mentioned Randy, man. Randy was so clutch. And you look at the stats, yeah, the 17 points. A lot of those points came in possessions where no offense was being generated. It looked like they were getting stifled, and next thing you know, they're just tossing it out to Randy, who's firing up a contested 3 and just banging it. And it's like those types of possessions really bail you out, especially when you look back at this game, only decided by 4 points. Randy had a couple threes in that game where Yaga had nothing going for them on a certain possession, and then he just fires up a 3 and bangs it. And you do that a couple times in the game, kind of switches momentum, and that was definitely big time for them. And Eric Langston, he started out the game hot, and when Pratt showed up, he looked over at Pratt and said, Pratt, it might be one of those games. It might be one of those games. And sure enough, it was one of those games. He ended up with 30 points. That's classic Eric Langston. A lot of times with Eric, especially during the regular season, he just comes to have fun. Half the time he's on the sidelines watching the other game, just talking shit to the other teams and, kind of just taking it easy. But when he wants to, he locks in, he engages himself in the game. He's one of the biggest impact players that you could possibly have on your roster, when he really engages himself. So that was really fun to see Eric, out there doing his thing. And yeah, I love what you mentioned about Dave Armstrong, probably the best rebounder in Legacy League's history. He just plays so angry on the low block. He looks so mad at people for no reason. It's like that Michael Jordan documentary when he just finds reasons to take things personal to, really, motivate himself to play harder. You definitely see that with Dave. He just gets so angry at these players on the other team for no reason, just to, give himself that edge. And then off the court, he's such a good guy. So it's just funny how, he puts that game face on and he locks in, and it's good to see when he's performing at the level he's been for Yaga. So great game. Came down to the wire. Just, Yaggaville was able to just kind of outmuscle their way to the win. I know TJ had a dunk. We'll see. Hopefully it makes the top 10 or top 5 plays of the week, because he had one that was like he shattered the rim. I thought the friggin' backboard was going to come down. It was insane. Along the baseline, just, yamming it down, man. The classic TJ Killings. So just a great game, a great watch, super entertaining all the way throughout, and a lot of high hopes for NLMB, man. One of the up and coming teams that you do not want to see this team in the playoffs, but I would anticipate maybe we might see this game in the playoffs again. These two teams facing off, and that's going to be box office.
Oh, it'll be box office. I mean, one of the things I really want to touch on too for NLMB is you mentioned it, and James Harrington, Connor says they call him Speedy. He's such an underrated player in this league. He averages 12 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and that's just like that stuff in the stat sheet where you're not going to win MVP with those stats, but those type of players are championship caliber players, and he shoots a high percentage, about 60% from the field, and I just think he's so important and so underrated. So I just want to give a shout out to NLMB. Want to give a shout out to Yaga. This was such a classic Legacy League battle, and Yaggaville ended up coming out on top, but it was just such a battle. And, like Connor said, these two teams, they can meet again in the playoffs, absolutely. But speaking of a playoff team or a championship hopeful, Get Money was playing Team YOLO for our last game of the night, and Get Money, without the McCrae brothers, Tyron and Taishin, they took it to them 95-62. Get Money was too much for Team YOLO, and in particular, Kyle Davis was too much. And Stami, if you heard it before, Kyle Davis might just be the best scorer in this league. There's a lot of ways you can go with that. Some might say Reggie Stewart, some might say Mike Davis, some might say Matt Fink, Bazzuto. Pick your poison, but Kyle Davis went absolutely crazy. He tied the single game points record with 68. He broke the single game 3-point made record with 17, and he just went absolutely crazy. I'm going to go to you, Chris. Chris, you're kind of the one who, helped facilitate Kyle in this league. I don't know if it was you, Pratt, or whoever, but kind of speak on this Get Money team. A lot of guys played well. Shout out X and Antoine and Tarek for helping us out, of course. And, all these guys, they contribute, but it was the Kyle Davis show. And what'd you see, Rudzinski?
Oh, Kyle Davis is I would say one of the best shooters I've seen on 10-foot, and now he's finally figuring it out in Legacy, as he said in the post-game show on the low rims. Obviously, anytime somebody scores 68 points, it's a phenomenal game. He hit 17 threes. I mean, what? I don't know how you could do any better, obviously. I'm sure he wishes, I know Kyle, I know he wishes he probably got 70 so he could break the record, but I mean, no 68 points. I mean, this is the second time we've seen it. I think it's only the second time we've seen a 60-point score in the Connecticut League. I don't know what the other records are in the other leagues, but
Yeah.
I know Mike got 59 a couple times. But I think Greg's the only one that eclipsed 60 until Kyle did it. And obviously Kyle is probably, I mean, you could argue the players, but I mean, he's top 5 in the league, I would say, players. One of the best guards we've ever seen in this league. Shout out to, I'll give Pratt credit. Me and Pratt got him to come play with Yaga. First, he won finals MVP, so you already know what he could do. And I mean, you saw him and if you remember in the finals, he dove for the ball to kind of seal the game on a steal. So he's willing to do it all to win the game. This is one of those teams like NLMB that you don't want to get matched up with early on in the playoffs because their athleticism and speed and Kyle Davis, they as KD will run you out of the gym if you let him.
Yeah, Kyle Davis. Kyle Davis will absolutely run you out the gym. And I want to shout out Ty Sheen. He's another. Last year, I was petitioning him for Defensive Player of the Year, and I again won it. Like, just watch him play defense. He is just so aggressive. He'll get put on a poster, and he doesn't care. And that's
Yeah, he
like
doesn't
something
care.
you just that's something big in this league. Like, you'll get dunked on. It's whatever. Like, just
We've all
I
done
just
it.
love him. Exactly. Like, it's all happened to us. I love this Get Money team. I'm
I
rooting
just,
for him.
I just want to say one more thing, Greg. Shout out to
Yep.
Rico again. Another great game, 27 points.
Facts.
He's always putting up numbers no matter what even if they get blown out or it's not going their way, he's going to put up his numbers.
Yeah, no, shout out Rico. Rico's a king, and honestly, if I was one of these teams kind of in the mid pack, I'd love to, hit him up and kind of recruit him because I think could be such a good piece. He's a great basketball player. But Connor, Get Money, YOLO. You're part of the Get Money bandwagon. What'd you see from your squad?
Man, Kyle Davis, dude. You know who he reminds me of? Chris being a Knicks fan, me being a Celtics fan, we saw a lot of this guy when he was coming up in his career. DeMar DeRozan, Greg, former Bull, that's your team.
Yeah.
He just kills people with that mid range, and his shooting form, it reminds me a lot of DeRozan's too. He's got that high elbow jumper. He gets great lift from the bottom half, and he always been killing people with that mid range. I mean, we can flash back to the finals that he won as MVP. Chris saw that firsthand. That mid range jumper was killing boys, and like DeMar might specialize in the mid range shot, but absolutely has the ability to step behind that 3-point line and do his damage from there. Obviously, Kyle, like Chris has said, he's probably been doing more damage at the mid range as he adjusts to the going from 10 foot obviously down to 8.5. But on a game like this, once he gets going and he starts to feel it, you got to watch out because he can do some major damage out there. And there you go, you get the 3-point record for most 3-pointers made in the game, and 68 points is absurd. Like I said earlier in the pod, with him and Reggie putting up these stat lines, it's one of the craziest nights we've seen just from individual performances. That was insane. Xavier McRae steps up, 13 points, typically, a ball handler, facilitator, kind of, dishing the rock, getting assists, but he came up big. They needed a secondary guy, and probably one of his better scoring nights in legacy leagues. With the 13 points. But I just want to say, you guys kind of stole my thunder with Rico. I am the #1 Rico fan. I love that guy. This team, YOLO, was a free agent team. All right, this was assembled by guys who didn't have a roster, and they kind of, they formed themselves. Joey kind of put these guys together. The fact that Rico Santiago was a free agent is a discredit to the general managers out there. Chris, you should have. If Chris was in this league, I know Chris would have not let that happen. Chris would have this guy coming off the bench, banging threes. This guy should have been on someone's team that was contending for a championship. He is an absolute force. He only shot the ball 2 for 12 from 3-point range this week, and that's typically where he does a lot of damage. And he still shot over 50%. So on a night where his shot wasn't falling from deep, he still found a way to get those 2-point baskets to fall for him. 27 points. He's a big body. He's a great guy. He's a great teammate. And if he's not an all-star this season, I'm going to have a word with all the interns that are voting on this thing. So, Jake, please do the right thing and vote this guy because he is an absolute animal. And I love the dude, and I just want to see him succeed. And I hope that if he comes back next year and if there's a team out there that's looking for a scoring option, man, hit up Rico Santiago because this guy deserves to be contending for championships the way he's been playing the last few years. So I just wanted to give him his love. And also Jamar Petty, number 58 for YOLO. He's been scrapping together a really nice season himself. He's been getting a lot of rebounds and a lot of 2-point. He just goes to the rack. You pretty much know what he's going to do every time he touches it. He's going to go to the hole, and people just haven't been able to find a way to stop him consistently. This YOLO team is fun. Like I said, they're a bunch of free agents, so there's not a lot of team chemistry. They kind of just try to figure it out throughout the games as they go, and they're exciting to watch. But yeah, I mean, Get Money. When you got a team like this, Kyle Davis knows, okay, no Tyron, no Ty Sheen. I'm going to be that guy this week, and just an absolute masterful performance, basically single-handedly he did single-handedly outscore Team YOLO. I don't think we mentioned that. So that's just a crazy stat line, crazy game for Kyle. Yeah, it's really as much as I can say about Get Money. Go Get Money, baby. That's my team.
Yeah, no. Shout out Get Money. They had a great game here, and it's a group. We got a great week of basketball next week. We got a big game with Get Money in Yaggaville, Flint Run TMC, Lord's Army NLMB. That's going to be a good one, and then FD Ballers NLMB. NLMB's got a doubleheader. What's going on here? All right, they're playing twice, so they better lock in because those doubleheaders are legit. But before we get out of here, we're about midway through. We're week five. And I'm going to ask for some week 5 midseason finals picks. Who you got in the chip, and then who you think is going to win it all. So I'll let you guys kind of look and do your thing, and I'll make mine quick. And I'm going to go with Flint in the finals. Big surprise there. And I think honestly, it's really hard to not go Flint Yaggaville, obviously, looking at those two teams. But I have fun not picking Yaggaville because why not? You got to have fun in life, right? I'm going to go Flint Run TMC in the finals with the Flint Tropics beating them by 60. I'm kidding. With the Flint Tropics beating them. And I don't want to go chalk here. I think Flint, obviously, I mean, what else can you say about them? You got Matt Fink balling out, Mike Bizzuto, MVP season. Same with Matt. They both are playing incredible. TJ Gianni has just been doing his thing. He can kind of step back and just play take a three, more of like a Klay Thompson type role. So I'm just excited to see what my Flint boys will do in the playoffs. And for Run TMC, I think they might be peaking at the right time and getting hot. And we've seen crazier things happen. Maybe Yaga plays Lord's Army or Get Money, and then they end up falling. But yeah, I'm gonna go Flint TMC, and I can't wait for Yaga to bang 23s in the game and scream my name because I'm used to that. So, Jake, I'm gonna go to you. Who you got? Your mid-season Legacy Leagues champion pick.
Yeah, so actually you stole my pick. So in the past we've kept hitting on that Flint versus Yaggaville, but I wanted to switch it up, and when you were in the beginning of your sentence, I also had Run TMC in my mind. Just something different. I feel like if anybody, obviously Yaggaville, yes, but if anybody can keep up with Flint offensively, it would be Run TMC. Because like you said, if they get hot at the right time, I mean, it's one game. If they only need to get hot for that one game and they can easily beat them, I feel like Flint is the obvious favorite here. Just every game I've seen with them, they always find a way to win. Last week, they only had 4 players show up. They still won by probably 30. Their ball movement's impeccable. It seems like they just get the ball to the right person at the right time. And then also another small player highlight for them, spotlight, is TJ Gianni. He doesn't put up an insane amount of stats, not stat padding in any way. They're not very eye-popping, but it seems like he's the glue of that team. I know Matt Fink, Bizzuto, as you said, but TJ Gianni seems like he always makes the right play at the right time. Even though they blow out a lot of these teams, it feels like he always grabs a big rebound, always hits a big three. Seems like he's always there for them whenever they need him. And I feel like they just play so well balanced that they're going to be hard to beat. But if anybody, like you said, can get hot at the right time, I think it can be Run TMC for sure.
All right, yeah. I mean, all right, yeah. It's weird being on the Run TMC bandwagon. I mean, hey, it's mid-season picks. I'll put in my official bracket last post-game show of the year, but I like it, Jake. I like it. I just think TMC is looking a little hot on the offensive end right now. But speaking of Yaggaville, not Yaggaville, but a member of the former Yaga team, Chris, I'm going to go to you. We're going to save the best pick for last. Real ones know Connor's very good at this. He is rarely wrong when it comes to Legacy Champ picks. So, Chris, I'm just going to let you take the floor.
All right, so I'm going to start out with a question here for Greg. You picked Run TMC to go to the finals. How many times did they beat Mike and Pratt in the playoffs? Pretty sure the record's 0-3. So we're gonna move right on. No disrespect. It's gonna be Yaggaville. It's gonna be Flint. This has been on a collision course since we saw the rosters. We know what's gonna happen, but I think Yaggaville is gonna beat them this time because last time when Flint won the championship, They didn't play this roster. This wasn't who they beat. They didn't beat. They lost to Mike Davis in the playoffs when they played them before. I think Mike's gonna come in and be on a mission. I think that Eric Langston just scored 30. I think they're really showing you how deep this team really is. I think Jelly's gonna show up and do what Jelly does, and I just don't see how Flint is gonna guard all these guys at the same. They're not. Who on the team is going to guard TJ Killings? Who on their team is going to out rebound Dave Armstrong? If this Yaggaville team really comes to play, I think they could kind of run this score up a little bit on Flint, the way Flint's been running the score up on other teams. And I obviously they all have to show up. Has been the thing, but I really think Yaggaville is going to win the championship, and I think it's not because of anything that's going on in this league. I think A1 in the Massachusetts League has kind of woken them up, and I think they really are going to want to prove now that they are the best team across all three leagues.
Yeah, no, I mean, damn, yeah, I it's a age-old legacy league saying, don't bet against Mike Davis, and I don't learn my lesson anytime, I guess. But shout out Mike the GOAT. Connor, I'll let you take it away, King. Who you got and why? Midseason pick.
Well, if there's anything I hate doing in this world, it's agreeing with Chris Rudzinski on anything. But unfortunately, we got to agree on this one. I got Flint as probably the number 1 seed. Yaga is the number 2 seed. That would be my prediction for those two guys to be going head to head in the finals this year. And for who's going to win, man, it's so tough. I do agree with a lot of what Chris said. Again, hate to say it, it's like vinegar coming out of my mouth. They definitely got the rebounding edge with Dave down there, and the athleticism edge. They got some of the bounciest guys that I've ever seen up and close and play basketball when it comes to TJ. Obviously, if Jelly shows up, they just got so many weapons, and so they'll definitely have the advantage down low with the boards. Definitely have some speed and some bounce advantages as well. But Flint, man, they just play like the San Antonio Spurs, right? Just like Tim Duncan was never known for his athleticism, or Tony Parker, Ginobili. These guys just played sound, fundamental basketball, and that's exactly how Flint plays. They just move the ball, the extra pass, the sound shooting from the outside. It'll be definitely, it'll be like a clash between cultures when it comes to the way these two teams compete. Very different styles, but I think for me, I never do this, Greg, but I'm with you on this one. I think the Flint Tropics are going to win the league this year. I think it'll be a high-scoring battle. I don't know how. I don't think they'll be able to stop Yaggaville, but I think they'll be able to outscore them, and it really will just come down to how efficient they're shooting. Obviously, shooting is a very hit or miss thing on a night-to-night basis. If you live by the three, you die by the three. That's always how it goes in basketball. So Flint can come out there and generate great offense and get these open looks, but sometimes these guys have nights where the ball's just in and out, right? And that's the way it falls. But so it's tough to predict how Flint's gonna win, but I just have faith in the way these guys have been playing, that they'll be able to find a way to get the win against Yaggaville, who's they had some close games. Obviously it's rare that they ever show up with their full roster assembled on a regular season game, but if they can get all their guys to show up for a playoff game or all the playoff games, anything can really go from that point on. So I got Flint. I got them beating Yaga. Let's see what Chris got to say. Hear Chris over there. What's going on, brother?
So did all three of you guys just pick Flint? Is that what just happened?
That is what just happened.
It's the Flint bandwagon.
You're giving Yaggaville all the bulletin board material they need to win this league. All three of you just bet against Mike Davis, who's 5-0 in the championships.
Is Mike playing?
Never lost the finals. He'll be there. Trust me, he'll be there when it counts.
He'll be there when it counts. All right, we heard it. We heard it from our insider, our Brian Windhorst.
Mike literally texted me today that he's coming for blood because of what A1 has said.
Okay.
I want to get into I want to touch on the A1 thing for a minute. A1 has been talking a lot of mess. They played 5 games in this league. Some of us, I don't think you should talk about being the best team across all 3 leagues until you've won multiple championships. Because come on, I have a shirt that's more years older than as many games as you guys won in this league. This shirt
Oh,
is 7 years old, and you guys have won 5 games in Legacy League history. So I just want to say, until you win a couple of these bad boys, just keep it zipped on the post game because I don't even think you guys are going to win the Massachusetts League, to be honest. I think Joey's got a little roster out there with Dom Langston and Cody Crawford that's going to come get rid of them. So
I like
since we're
that.
getting
You
into
know what?
predictions,
No, I like that. That's a good way to end it. That is how you end a post game show. So for the 3-time champ, Chris Rudzinski of Yaga and Shocker City, for the young king himself, Jake, the intern hopping on. We appreciate it as always, Jake. You always bring some good insight. And then Connor, my weekly rebound co-host. It's been a great post game. Quickly before we go for the post game show, I just want to say shout out my Flint Tropics. I know now we're the hunted. It used to be fun to be on the bandwagon of Flint. You know, we were the underdogs. Now I guess we're on top. But I just want to also shout out all the teams in this Legacy Leagues, all the interns, Chris and Connor and everyone that just kind of keep this league flowing and running. And we appreciate it. And we're going to have a good playoffs coming up. And shout out A1. And we're going to let Rudzinski end it here. You get the last words.
I just want to ask another question. So does this mean that a Mike Davis led team is an underdog going into the playoffs, according to Greg?
Depending on how that last game, Flint v. Yaga, turns out.
I don't think that game doesn't matter. That game
does.
does not matter to who wins the championship.
Well, you know what they say. We'll see what the interns vote on the power rankings. That'll be a week 5 post-game show for Legacy Leagues. Half the season down. Yaga and Flint fighting for that top spot. It's been real, everyone. Appreciate y'all.